It is the year 9, Germania. We had marched under the command of Publius Quinctilius Varus, a general whose reputation was built on wisdom and strength. Varus was a figure of awe and respect, a commander who led with both strategic brilliance and a genuine care for his men. He had guided us through numerous campaigns, and his presence alone inspired confidence. But even his exceptional leadership could not shield us from the horrors that awaited us in the dark heart of Germania. The forest journey began with an eerie silence. It much felt like the previous day. We had been on a march and were ambushed from all sides, leaving many wounded. Our foes had disappeared into thin air. Everything had stopped, and we were met with the very same silence. This made me feel uneasy. The usual sounds of nature were muted, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. The air was cool and damp, heavy with the scent of earth and decay. The weather was cold, with a fine mist hanging low, adding to the oppressive atmosphere. The once familiar scent of the forest, usually pleasant and invigorating, now seemed foreboding, laden with the promise of dread. Our column advanced in a winding formation, the path narrow and treacherous. The trees, ancient and gnarled, formed a dense canopy above us, blocking out the light and casting everything into a perpetual twilight. Every step was a struggle as we navigated through thick underbrush and tangled roots. The silence was unsettling, the occasional snap of a twig or rustle in the undergrowth setting our nerves on edge. The once disciplined ranks of our legion seemed to falter, our senses heightened and alert, each of us acutely aware of the weight of impending doom. Then came the first sign of the calamity that was to unfold. Out of the oppressive silence, the whistling of arrows sliced through the air. They struck with deadly precision, the sharp, hissing sound of their flight, followed by the sickening thud as they found their marks. Men fell around me, their bodies collapsing into the mud, their cries of pain piercing the heavy stillness. The arrows seemed to come from every direction, relentless and merciless, turning our once orderly ranks into a chaotic mess of bodies and confusion. We formed testudos, standing shoulder to shoulder, raising our shield. I gripped my gladius firmly. We were under attack, and the enemy was unlike any we had faced before. Huge, formidable warriors emerged from the forest, their bodies adorned with dark, intricate markings that spoke of their fierce tribal traditions. They were giants of men, their beards wild and unkempt, their eyes filled with a burning ferocity. These were the Germanic tribesmen, warriors of the forest, who had prepared for this day with relentless resolve. I saw them, charging out of the trees. It looked like there were hundreds of thousands of them. We were struggling to hold our formation. The ground beneath us was slippery. On the enemy side, one figure stood out, a beast of a man, towering above the rest, his presence commanding immediate terror. He was a true embodiment of Germanic strength, covered in elaborate tattoos that seemed to writhe and shift with his every movement. His beard was a tangled mane of dark hair, and his eyes blazed with a wild, untamed fire. He wielded a massive axe, its blade reflecting the faint light that filtered through the trees. The chaos reached a fever pitch when this monstrous warrior clashed with our centurion, Marcus Caelius. Marcus was a hero in his own right, a man whose bravery and leadership had earned him the respect and admiration of every soldier under his command. He fought valiantly against the barbarian, his sword flashing in the dim light. his shield a bastion against the savage assault. But the barbarian's strength was overwhelming. With a roar of triumph, the barbarian's axe descended upon Marcus. The force of the blow shattered the centurion's defense, the blade cutting through armor and flesh with brutal efficiency. Marcus fell to the ground, his eyes wide in shock and pain. In a grotesque display of victory, the behemoth swiftly removed Marcus's head and lifted it by the hair, holding it aloft with a savage glee. He then seized Marcus's helmet, placing it upon his own head, his laughter echoing through the forest like the cruel mockery of fate. Seeing this, I was consumed by a surge of fury. I charged forward, my gladius ready to strike down the barbarian and avenge our fallen centurion. But as I closed in, a sudden force struck me from behind, the impact resounding through the metal of my helmet. The world spun violently, and I was thrown to the ground, my senses overwhelmed. I then felt cold steel slide through my back before efficiently being thrusted out. I have been in enough battles to know what had happened. Darkness closed in around me, and the battlefield faded into a haunting silence. I opened my eyes and heard no screams, no sounds of dying, no clanging of steel. I was lying on soft, emerald grass, the air warm and fragrant. As I sat up, I saw a stunningly beautiful landscape stretched out before me. A long river flowed below, its waters gleaming like molten silver under the sun. The river was wide and serene, bordered by lush flowering banks that seemed to bloom in vibrant hues. In the distance, a large boat glided across the river with an effortless grace. It was unlike any vessel I had ever seen, moving swiftly and smoothly, as though propelled by some unseen force. On board, a multitude of people stood and sat, their faces calm and content, their garments flowing gently in the breeze. They appeared to be at peace, their expressions reflecting a profound sense of tranquility, so perfect that it felt like a dream. Could this be Elysium? If this was so, then I had been granted an extraordinary reprieve from the suffering and bloodshed that had defined my recent days. The river, the boat, and the peaceful people seemed to offer a stark contrast to the chaos and death of the Teutoburg Forest. As I watched the boat move swiftly across the shimmering waters, I wondered about the nature of this place and whether it truly was the final resting place for souls like mine.